moment the two sides could even begin to come together and to discuss what to do next. So what prospect is there for peace here in the Middle East when we're perhaps further away than we've been from it for a very long time? Well, Eyal Mayroz joins as a senior lecturer in peace and conflict studies at the University of Sydney. Thank you for joining us here on BBC News. And as we continue to see these live pictures of Gaza and as we continue to hear that bombardment continuing, I think for many people around the world, they would look at this situation and think, where do you even begin? What are your suggestions?
Well, I think there are two points that need to be taken care of. One is the immediate one, stopping the fighting, stopping the violence. Palestinian children's lives are as important as Israeli children's lives, and the international community is not doing enough. The decision at the General Assembly, as was said, is non-binding. And really, the only country that can make a difference is the US. I'd add also that 45 or thereabouts countries, Europeans and others, have abstained from the vote because they did not like three things that were missing for them in the resolution, which was, as said, mentioning Hamas, but also mentioning Israel's right to defend itself. And the third was the hostages. But because it was wrapped around the humanitarian ceasefire, which everyone supports, that's why the resolution is passed. But the only way to really change things is much more international pressure, American pressure to on both sides, on Israel, to allow more humanitarian aid, to stop the bombing of places where the civilian population is still has not moved yet to the south, and for Hamas to stop firing from centers of populated centers, as well as push Hamas to get into some kind of agreement over the hostages, because if the ground invasion continues, then the risk to the hostages is enormous.
How do you assess that point that Israel made in the wake of that vote yesterday evening? And they said very clearly that when it was, they talked about the Nazis, they talked about ISIS, and they said that, in the past, when these kinds of threats had been present, countries were backed to be able to take affirmative action against them. What is your assessment of that Israeli position?
Well, Israel is in a terrible or very difficult situation in terms of its decision-making. If it goes ahead with the ground assault, then, as we know, very high numbers of casualties among the Israelis, among the Palestinian, much more so among the population, civilian population. There's no guarantee that it will succeed in destroying Hamas capabilities. There is a risk of escalation, regional escalation, Hezbollah in the north and so on. So the stakes are enormous and high risk to the hostages, over 200 hostages. But if it does not, then it has lost its military deterrence, which for Israel is incredibly important in terms of its sense of security. It has also, the Israeli public will be very angry because the south of Israel will become uninhabitable, in a sense that Israelis will just be afraid to live there if next to a Hamas-run Gaza. So no good solutions there. They're juggling hundreds of factors that we don't know about, and yeah, this is a really difficult situation.
Eyal, thank you for joining us. Eyal Mayroz, who's a senior lecturer in peace and conflict studies at the University of Sydney.